Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche. This week, I want to share a favorite spring wildflower, common Trillium, Trillium grandiflorum. This species is one of 9 native trilliums in Michigan. And I noted that several of our trillium species are quite rare. There are 3 threatened and 1 state endangered species. But this is our most common and the largest and the showiest and the most well-known. And for habitat, it occurs in moist to dry deciduous forests, and it forms large colonies, especially in rich mesic beech maple forests. Less often, you'll find it in oak, hickory, and aspen forests, and sometimes in swamps, mixed coniferous and hardwood swamps, and coniferous swamps. It occurs across the eastern third of the U.S. and Canada, south to Georgia. And this is an herbaceous plant. It's very long-lived. It's a woodland perennial and just one of the folks' favorite spring wildflowers. It prefers dappled sunlight to light shade in the spring, but it is more tolerant of deeper shade later in the growing season. So it'll flower a little before or just as the overstory trees are leafing out. And it needs evenly moist, loose, loamy soils with leaf litter and other organic matter on top. It can be propagated from seed and from vegetative offsets of the rhizome. It's important that you don't collect this wildflower, dig it up in public lands and only with permission on private lands. You can certainly harm these colonies with overcollection. The plant itself is 8 inches to 1.5 feet tall, and it has an unbranched stem with a whorl of 3 terminal leaves, and they are glossy with parallel veins, and they can be up to 6 inches long and 5 inches across, and those leaves are pretty oval in shape and glabrous, meaning they're hairless. The leaves are sessile to subsessile, meaning they're unstalked. And mature plants will put up a single white, very showy flower that is 3 to 4 inches across on an erect stalk that is 1 to 3 inches long. So the flower is held well above the leaves. Some other Trillium species hold the flower more on the same plane or even underneath the leaves. There are 3 white petals that are pretty equal angular in how they're held, with 3 green sepals showing from underneath. The petals are longer than the sepals. The ovary is white and 6-angled with 3 stigmas and 3 pale yellow stamens. And the petals are overall ovate to obovate, meaning wider above the middle. And those petals can become pink as the flower ages. So as it moves from the initial bloom time into the blooming period, it'll change from white to pink in color. The fruit for this plant is a pale green ovoid capsule that is 6-angled and eventually darkens and splits open to release brown seeds. So this plant blooms in late April to early June, depending on what latitude and elevation you're located at. And flowers last, or blooming time for a colony is usually about 3 weeks. So it will flower with other spring ephemerals like yellow trout lily. To learn more about that plant, see Monday with Martha number 49. Other species like spring beauty and bloodroot and hepatica. So fun to walk through the woods and find these lovely spring wildflowers. The root system on the plant is fairly vertical, fibrous roots, but they also form spreading rhizomes as well to get those lovely massed colonies of common Trillium. As far as wildlife value goes, the flower is pollinated by small bees that partake of the nectar and pollen. It can be a larval host for a couple of moth species, the American angleshades and black-patched clepsis. And the seeds have fleshy food appendages called elysomes, and those attract ants, and so the ants carry the seed, and that's how the seed is largely dispersed. The large leaves provide really great cover for small woodland mammals, and the foliage and in particular the flowers are readily browsed by white-tailed deer. There are still lots of studies going on about the cumulative effects of heavy deer browsing repeatedly year after year on populations, but it could certainly reduce population size and health over time. So there are lots of forest understory studies being done with deer exclusions and looking at deer impacts on our woodland ground cover health. I also found a study talking about soils being impacted and changing with acid rain and that having an impact on Trillium populations. And there is also a disease, mycoplasma infection, that results in green coloration happening within the white petals. So that is a parasite, and it does cause death over a several year period, and it can spread throughout a population. Another challenge to this particular species would be invasive species like garlic mustard. I talked about that last week in Monday with Martha number 103. But that species readily spreading through our forest ground covers and outcompeting our native wildflowers is certainly a concern for common Trillium. And actually, as I was filming some of this, I hand pulled some garlic mustard that I found. And so it's important that you, if you're going to try to grow this in your own landscape, that you buy it from a reputable nursery. They'll often be growing this in shaded settings, and you really do want to avoid wild collected plants. Don't want to transfer invasive seed. You don't want to transfer that mycoplasma infection, and you don't want to damage wild populations. And certainly you'll want to fence this lovely wildflower off from intensive deer browsing. So I hope you enjoyed these images of the beautiful common Trillium. And if you hurry, get out into the woods and perhaps still find some blooming yet this spring. Thanks, and have a good week.